Happy 4th of July, everyone, from our Across the Sky podcast team. I'm meteorologist Joe Martucci. Joined with me from Chicago, Matt Holliner. We have maybe our most unique episode of the Across the Sky podcast. We managed to snag an interview with George Shea. You might not know the name, but you definitely know his suit and the hat at the Nathan's 4th of July eating contest. He is the chairman of Major League Eating. He is the host of the contest. We have him on to talk all things hot dogs. Sean Sublett, who is the meteorologist at the Richmond Times-Dispatch, he balked at this interview. I don't think the hot dogs agreed with him there. Kirsten Lang is on maternity leave, so she has we'll say, what do we think, Matt? A more valid reason for not being on the podcast?
Because I knew we were in trouble when this all started, when we were talking about our sports betting episode and how weather impacts sports. And you brought up, hey, what about the hot dog eating contest? What about Major League Eating? And as soon as you brought up the hot dog eating contest, the look on Sean's face over Zoom, because we recorded this over Zoom, was priceless. A look of horror is the best way to describe it, just crossed his face. And I was like, I don't think he's going to do that episode.
Right. So only the strong survive here. Matt and I, we're here, and we'll just get into it. Let's talk to George Shea about the Nathan's hot dog eating contest.
Curtain calling all unexpected seekers. The time is here for this year's Capitol Fringe Festival, an annual celebration of theater and expression taking place July 12th to the 23rd in Georgetown. Whether you feel like belly laughing at lighthearted humor, grappling with life's toughest challenges, or toe-tapping to the legends of bluegrass music, there's something for every audience member at this live, uncensored event. Come laugh, cry, and make a scene with us. For more information or to book your tickets, visit georgetowndc.com/fringe today.
All right, and we are here. 4th of July is coming up on Tuesday, and when I think 4th of July, the first thing I think of is the Nathan's hot dog eating contest. So who better to have on than the chairman of Major League Eating and the host of the Nathan's hot dog eating contest, George Shea. George, it is great to be here with you. Happy early 4th of July to you. How are you feeling? And as we get into the event here that will be coming up on Tuesday.
Well, thank you very much for having me, both of you. I appreciate that. We are very excited. Obviously, the tension high. The 4th of July is upon us, but we're, every year it's crazy. You're up and down. You have different things to deal with, but we are ready to rock and roll. And I think it's going to be a great event.
Always a great event on the corner of Surf and Stillwell in Coney Island. I was there in 2011 when Sonia Thomas won the women's event. Joey Chestnut was doing his thing there. It wasn't too hot that day, but it was humid, I remember. We had about a mix of sun and clouds with some haze. You did a great job, George, as always. I'll say this in the intro too, but kind of a personal hero of mine. No one hypes up a crowd quite like you, George. So it's truly an honor to have you here today on the Across the Sky podcast. I want to get into why I'm having you here, because last year and the year before, I was hearing on the Twitterverse, the weather is perfect. Will Joey beat the record? A couple of our sports betting friends were wondering about this too, just with the conditions being so perfect. He had 70, I believe he had the record in 2021 with 76 hot dogs and buns. Didn't do it in 2022, but I said, hey, you know what? Maybe there's something to this when it comes to weather in the hot dog eating contest. So my question to you is, what are the athletes saying? Is there something to this? Is there a correlation?
Well, and there absolutely is. So there are a couple of factors, but weather is certainly very high among them. So ideally, you want it nice and cool and not too humid and certainly not sort of oppressively hot. In 2020, because of COVID, we did it inside with a temperature-controlled environment. It was not particularly cool. It was not hot, but we had to air condition a big warehouse on the top of Nathan's at Coney Island, and big space. So it was okay, but it wasn't great. But everybody said, you need an asterisk because it's indoors in an environment that's controlled. In 2021. We just happened to have perhaps the most beautiful 4th of July ever. I've been doing this since 1988, and we've had all variety of weather circumstances, but it was about 74 degrees. It was a little breezy. It was just kind of cool and lovely, an early June day kind of situation. And the audience was just like, this is perfect. But the eaters obviously were in really good shape as well and performed as you might expect. However, last year, hotter, less comfortable. But there's another issue that affects all of this, and that is how long have the hot dogs been prepared and how long have they been waiting for the eaters? Last year, I noticed that the hot dogs came up early. That allows the buns to dry out a little, and it allows the hot dogs to tighten up. It is equal across all competitors and fair, but it does slow the eaters down. So there are a bunch of different factors that are at play.
Okay, George, so since you mentioned the buns being dry, not being a good thing, I'm wondering if rain might actually be a good thing. I often see people watching these, dunking those buns in the soda and the water. So if they're already a little bit damp from some rain, would that be a good thing? Or is there a threshold? Is there a perfect amount of rain? Is there too much rain or too little rain? Or is no rain really better?
So I think on balance for the eaters, rain would be good if it was a light rain. So, and then how long are the dogs out there, et cetera. So if there's a torrential downpour, that's going to be a problem. But I think you're right. If it's not super dry and super hot, and if there were almost like a light drizzle, that would make the buns easier to eat. If it was really, really raining cats and dogs, you're going to have a situation where the buns are just mush, and then you have to manage those. That would actually slow you down. And one of my favorite contests ever, I think we only did it once, was the hard-boiled egg eating contest in Kentucky. And it was absolutely torrential downpour, and the hard-boiled eggs were served in a tin. It would be like a cake tin about 2.5 inches tall around the side, the straight one. And there was so much rain that it was literally going over the sides of the tin. But that was not an issue because a hard-boiled egg is not going to absorb any water. So it was just a very dramatic event. And Miki Sudo ate 104 hard-boiled eggs. Joey Chestnut ate 144. But really, all eyes will be on the weather on the 4th, and it does matter.
I don't think I've ever ate more than like 6 hard-boiled eggs in one sitting. So, 140 is, I'll keep dreaming about it. Let's put it that way. George, are you talking to any meteorologists before the hot dog eating contest? What is your weather diet going into and on the 4th of July itself?
Well, as you can imagine, I am never not nervous about rain. And rain, look, this is what I say to everybody, including myself, Andy. It's a lie. I don't care if the weather's good or bad. We're just going to hold this event and it's all good, right? We're going to get the media. We're going to have an audience. They come in the rain. In fact, a lot of people just sort of say, well, what are we going to do today? We can't go to the beach. Let's go to the hot dog contest. We get a very big crowd. But it matters to me a lot. I worry constantly. I always tell myself not to do it, but I start looking at the long-term forecasts and I fret over it. So it is always bothers me. And the reason for that, to be honest, right, I'm sharing, this is a safe place. Okay.
This is a safe place. Yes, absolutely. We've done this many times on the podcast.
I can be vulnerable here, I hope.
Absolutely.
So the reason is because it's my favorite day of the year because I love doing the event. It's about a 2.5-hour show. I do all these silly things, rap with Badlands Booker. I cannot sing. I often sing a song like Hold On by Wilson Phillips with a backup band. Thinking of doing Fernando this year by ABBA with a backup band. I cannot sing, but can you hear the drums, Fernando? How can you? It's so emotional. But so the event itself for me is really fun, and it is much more fun if it's sunny and everybody's into it. So, the event will go on. The event will not be affected by the weather ultimately. But for me, the show would be because it's not quite as fun if it's not beautiful. So that's my own personal take on it. On balance, again, I don't think the eaters much care unless it's super, super hot, which is very difficult.
So I'm guessing the hot dog eating contest has never been delayed because of weather. And would there ever be a situation where you would delay it?
So here's the thing. we had lightning sweeping in over the New York Harbor one year, and ESPN is there. And there was a great deal of concern that we would not be able to do it. And what happened is we were able to get the contest, and this would have been, oh boy, somewhere around 2008, 9, 10, 11, somewhere in there, in that sort of earlier, a good 15 years ago. We were able to get the contest in, and then as soon as we finished it, it crashed, right? Like where everybody's running, it rained, but we got the contest in. But I've been in Buffalo one time, and we do the chicken wing contest on Labor Day. And that's a great event. You get about 10, 20,000 people. It's a great festival and really fun. And then we saw, and everybody could see it, we were at the baseball stadium up there, these storm clouds that looked like out of a movie, right? Like Thor was coming. And, and I said, the gods are angry. But we got our event done then. And once again, everybody ran and it just opened up. But we would have to postpone if there were any threat from lightning.
Yeah, I think you're pretty blessed to be in Coney Island for this, because, you don't always, you will get some hot days, but being by the water, water temps usually in the 60s, and Coney Island, 4th of July, never gets super hot. Can get humid though. I'm wondering what was your worst weather experience and what year that was? Was it what you were just saying in 2007, 2010 timeframe? And then the best one that you had as well?
You mentioned it. The best one was 2021. That was just a gorgeous day. That was like a day. Do you know what's funny? I just, over Memorial Day, we had absolutely stupendous weather in the New York region. It was just lovely beyond any measure, and it stayed that way for days on end. Please forgive the siren if you can hear it, where I'm in New York City. So it was like that on the 4th of July. It's kind of like you're one of those days where you go, you got to enjoy this day. So that's very rare on the 4th of July to have perfect weather like that. I would say the worst days, and I think most of them probably came in the 2000 teens, where it had super, super hot 90 plus, right? As you said, you usually get a certain amount of movement and breeze off of the ocean. It makes it a little bit better, but you can get these hot days. And those are very difficult for the eaters and for the audience, and for me for that matter. But I'm paid to be there, so it's just put on the hat and go. But, these people are out there in this brutal weather for hours and hours, because the show, they start lining up at about 7:30 or 8, and then the show starts at 10:30, and the men's contest is at 11:40, right? So that's, they're there in that sun, and it can be very difficult for them.
I'm wondering for you, before I toss the break, you are in the suit and the hat. You must get a little hot in there on 4th of July.
So I have learned, I generally, and this is sad, as I get older, I'm a little bit more affected by the heat. I hate to say it. My eyes, by the way, are horrible. But generally, heat does not bother me. It really doesn't. Like, some people just really are uncomfortable in the heat. They sweat a lot, but they're just generally, you get malaise and everything. Generally, that has not been the case for me, so I can endure it. But I learned, never wear a blue shirt if you're in an environment like that, because if you perspire a lot, it will look atrocious. So I learned in like 2002 or something, 3, just always wear a white shirt, because you'll never notice it.
I just say, I don't ever remember you with anything other than a white shirt.
Yes, but that's right, because I've gone for 2 decades with a white shirt. I learned. I'm slow, but I learned. And then also, don't go for red Gatorade or blue Gatorade, because your tongue is going to look like very weird on the color. Go for like the gray Gatorade.
That's from the pro. You don't get this anywhere else, folks. This isn't on 4th of July. You only hear this on the Across the Sky podcast. We are going to take a brief break, and on the other side, we're going to talk with George Shea some more about the hot dog eating contest happening on July 4th in Coney Island.
Curtain calling all unexpected seekers. The time is here for this year's Capitol Fringe Festival, an annual celebration of theater and expression taking place July 12th to the 23rd in Georgetown. Whether you feel like belly laughing at lighthearted humor, grappling with life's toughest challenges, or toe tapping to the legends of bluegrass music, there's something for every audience member at this live, uncensored event. Come laugh, cry, and make a scene with us. For more information or to book your tickets, visit georgetowndc.com/fringe today.
And we are back with the Across the Sky podcast. You can check out new episodes every Monday. Every Monday evening, we have new episodes for you, spanning across the wide range of weather, climate, and beyond, including hot dogs. And it is 4th of July, so we have the chairman of Major League Eating, George Shea, here with us, maybe America's best hype man, as we're getting into the 4th of July and the event here. George, I have to ask you because... And the reason why I said you're kind of a personal hero of mine is because you are so precise with your hyping of all the contestants. It's just so well performed. How long do you spend working on that script? I'm imagining it's a script. If you do it ad lib, you got to become a meteorologist because, you're just standing at the screen talking about the weather without any script. But I'm curious.
I know I do write a script. And in fact, years ago, I would sort of start putting thoughts together the night before. I mean, just insane, and try to memorize them. I'd be up till 3 or 4 a.m. trying to memorize stuff. Once again, slowly, I get there slowly, but eventually I got mature and said, I'm going to do it. So why not do it before? And so that's what I've been doing lately. And so I always work on the Joey intro and the other big intros. And then I memorize them. Right. But it's one of my favorite things to do. It's not easy for me. Sometimes I think of things and it's just there. And then sometimes you just have to do the work and really get there and then see what works. But for me, you went to the event, but most people don't know that there's an event for 2.5 hours. And we have an opera singer and I introduce him. I do a rap battle with Badlands Booker. We do all kinds of things. I sing these songs I cannot literally sing, but I sing with a backup band and all this kind of stuff. Very silly, but it takes a lot of work to prep. So I have a very long script that begins with, ladies and gentlemen of Coney Island, citizens of the world, blah, 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 all the way to we have had a wild rumpus, but now our revels are ended. I will see you next year, right? And so it's a very, very long script. A lot of those components are set pieces that I do all the time, like it's go time, it's go tack time, it's go, no go, lock and load, love them and leave them, on and on and on. So I know those things and, but most of the intros are all new and require memorization. So that is always, I start about 3 weeks before and I'm never comfortable until it's done. And then even then I sort of like groan inside if I think I could have done, something better or more poetic or more funny.
And George, I know you're most well known for the hot dog eating contest, but how many others do you do throughout the year? And do you have a favorite? Is the hot dog eating contest your favorite, or is there another one that people may not know as much about that you enjoy a little bit more?
Well, the hot dog contest is by far and away my favorite because there's so much pressure and so much focus. There's so many media, so many fans that it just amps it up into a whole nother level. However, I do a lot of other events, and I did just a little while back the Maintenance Mania, which is a maintenance tech contest where they do all these things like fixing a sink and all these things and who can do it the fastest. It's actually enormously fun. It's at the National Apartment Association conference, and so I do that. It's not an eating thing. I've introduced a lot of NASCAR events. You introduce the top drivers, so that is very exciting. There are good 40,000 people there. Can be very, very fun. And so Nathan's is without question my favorite, but there are a lot of other events, corporate events, you introduce the board or you introduce the executive suite, ending the CEO or chairman gets a Joey style intro and you find someone who's fun, who can be teased. But it brings up another thing, which is interesting, perhaps only to me, but when you're doing 15 intros, you have to have a balance and a mix, right? So you need some that are just straight, like so-and-so from Aurora, Colorado, and you need some that are sort of grand, like the crucible, our humanity is put through the crucible of competitive eating or something like that, or once in every 10 generations, a hero arises and so he stands before you now, so-and-so. A couple grand ones like that. But you need funny ones. Very hard for me because it either comes to me or it doesn't. I have trouble writing jokes. I do write these jokes, but I always worry it'll be a joke where people go, like, and not a real funny joke. But sometimes you really do want a funny one. You want one that's really fantastic and outrageous and like, just more poetic. You want one that's like about, some like the evil, pure evil, you know what I mean? And George Chigger, who will not be competing this year, I described him as the red horse of death. And I spoke in the language of hell. And, this like, Judge 10 Day West, joy, like all this kind of crazy orc talk or whatever. And I had a lot of fun with that. So I'm sad he's not coming back. But then obviously you end with the Joey Chestnut intro, which is more epic than anything could ever be epic, talking about freedom itself. Joey Chestnut is freedom itself. The rock on which he stands is not a rock. It's the United States of America. And, on and on and on. And now really where I am is it has been for the last couple of years is more like universal. But whoever's the champion is going to get an intro like that because they are the champion of the 4th of July. So that's, for me, developing that mix is actually a task, and then delivering it. By that time I've memorized it. It's fun, but it definitely doesn't. It's not off the top of my head.
Do you ever wake up in the middle of the night and jot something down? Has that happened before?
100%. And so I used to carry a book, and then I would email myself. I'm dating myself here. And now I just have a Google Doc, and I just put stuff in all the time, like all these just things that strike me as funny, and or interesting and epic. And I certainly appropriate a lot of stuff. I don't rip anybody off, but I definitely appropriate, like, for instance, look on his works, ye mighty in despair, for he has surpassed the kings of Egypt. That first part is I believe Percy Bysshe Shelley, from Ozymandias. And you know what I'm saying? Like, so if I find something that I think is just, wow, that's great, I will think, what would be a version of that? How do you start from there and go somewhere else and stuff like that?
And George, you bring up Joey Chestnut, and I just want to get your take on him. Do you think he's the best there's ever going to be, or is there going to be somebody that's going to come along and one day supplant him, or is he ever going to reach his threshold? What is your take on Joey Chestnut?
Well, look, I think it's obvious that Joey is not going to be here forever, kind of thing. So there will be a post Joey world, and his number will be surpassed. It's just that simple. No one thought Kobayashi was ever going to be beaten, and he was beaten badly and again and again and again, and he quit, right? So no one thought 50 could be achieved. Kobayashi did that. It blew up the whole thing. It was amazing. He's an amazing competitor. But Joey could beat him repeatedly, and Kobayashi would never be able to beat Joey. Joey's at 70, call it 76, in that range above 70. Kobayashi is not going to 76. It is never happening, right? And Kobayashi's best was like 68 or 69 or 66, in that range, depending on, because he did some contests beyond us and people said the numbers weren't right, but call it high 60s. That was in 12 minutes. Joey is doing this in 10. He's doing 76 in 10. So those kind of records are not going anywhere time soon, but every record will fall.
Why did we change from 12 to 10? What was the reasoning behind that? I forget.
So we found some documentation, and there was a big Times story on this, New York Times, that the contest early in the 20s was 10 minutes long. And so we switched to that. Kind of a dramatic thing to do, but we were honoring that. And I don't know when it went to 12. When I started in 88, it was 12. Not only that, this is bizarre, Max Rossi, now dead, R.I.P., great guy, ran the contest. At 6 minutes, halfway through, he'd say, okay, time out, can take a break. And then for 5 seconds, then he'd go, okay, we're back at it. I don't know what that accomplished, because they didn't clear their mouth. We didn't take a 10-minute break.
Right.
What was he even thinking?
Right.
But that wasn't perhaps his specialty. But, but it's been 10 minutes for a long time, and all of the records now are perceived as being 10 minutes. But remember, prior to, in the Kobayashi era and before, it was 12 minutes.
Got it. Okay. So what can we expect with this year's event? Do we have how many new in terms of new contestants? Do we have any new wrinkles in the programming that we'll see if you're watching it on TV? What are you expecting? What can people expect?
Let me skip the obvious and get right to sort of the inside track if I can.
Yeah, let's do it.
So I'm sharing here because we'll give people who are considering betting and looking at this some insight. Look for Jeffrey Esper, because this guy is a monster, okay? He's ranked number 2 in the world, and he is just absolutely relentless, and he is spectacular, all right? So Jeffrey Esper, keep an eye on him. The prospects for him going forward are amazing. Also, we have to see what happens with 2 Japanese eaters, okay? We have Max Suzuki has always come from Japan, but we have 2 new competitors, which I can't pronounce the name fully, so I won't try. But we have a male professional coming, and I've seen his YouTube stuff, and I've seen his web stuff and social stuff, and the quantity of food is astounding. And a female eater who will be taking on Miki Sudo, likewise, the quantity of food, it's just enormous. It's like Matt Stoney level buckets of food. But the question is duration. So 10 minutes is not really what they try focus on. They're more like 20 minutes or 30 minutes, right? And they do these quantities of food that are just astounding, but not for speed. So it's always a wild card on what they will do. But as I look at this, I look at Nick Werry, okay, ranked number 4 in the world, married to Miki Sudo. Their son, Max, all right, the 2 greatest eaters around, they marry and have a child. Their son, Max, was ranked number 42 while still in the womb. Okay, that's how good his parents are. And it's now the mashed banana eating champion of Tampa Bay, Florida, right?
Wow. So you must be happy for the long-term prospects of Major League.
I'm recruiting him now. I don't know if it's appropriate. We should probably let him get out of grade school. But they are an amazing couple, and Nick is absolutely fantastic. And he knocked down in the qualifier in Orlando, Florida. He knocked down 44 on a bad day. All right. So he was having trouble. The hot dogs had been there for a while. They were tough. He was off, and he knocked down 44. And I said, oh my God, Nick, that's a great number. He was very disappointed. So keep an eye on Nick. Keep an eye on Jeffrey Esper. Keep an eye on the new Japanese folks, because Max Suzuki is going to be in that 40 range, but he's not likely to go above 40. And Miki, I would never bet against Miki to win. And then, you have to make your own choice on, can anybody beat the guys at the top? I don't think that anyone's getting to 76, and I don't think that Miki's going to be beaten. But those, what I'm looking at are the folks I just mentioned.
I love the inside baseball on this. It's some great insight. I want to quickly touch on the history here a little bit. I want to know why were hot dogs chosen over another popular fast food, hamburgers, for example? Is there a reason why it is the hot dog eating contest versus something else?
Well, we have done hamburger eating contests, right? So, but the original, as you mentioned, we did Crystal hamburgers. We've done other hamburgers. I think this boils down to this. All right. And they talk about Live Golf and the PGA, and they say money is always going to win. All this talk about principle and all that is garbage. Money is going to corrupt everything, and commerce is going to rule the day. The reason that this was done is because Max Rosie and Mortimer Matz, the 2 Coney Island press agents who ran the contest, from 1972 until I took it over in 91. My first was 88, but I took it over in 91. They represented Nathan's, and they were looking for something to get on TV or in the paper on the 4th of July. And they originally started it on, a couple of years rather, did it on Memorial Day, but it was always a 4th of July contest. They were just looking for that photo. So that is that, if you ask why hot dogs, it's because always it was this promotion of hot dogs for Nathan's, which is the original hot dog. And it's in Coney Island in New York City on the 4th of July, right? Immigrants, hot dogs, baseball, apple pie, America. That's really, and seen through the lens of marketing, Okay, so that's, and promotion. That's why, in this case, hot dogs. But as I said, we have gotten inquiries and do events, chicken wings, hamburgers, pizza, everything. But somehow, hot dogs on the 4th of July is different and better.
I think also too, hot dogs are very relatable to eating fast. Like anyone can like scarf a hot dog in 2 seconds, But doing 76 of those is a whole nother story. George, I got 2 more questions for you, and then we're going to wrap on up. And this one I'm genuinely curious about, and we kind of touched on it. How do you get that excited for the intros and during the contest? Because we're talking right now, you're pretty calm, cool, and collected, but it's like you turn it to like 11 when it comes time for the contest. So what's the secret formula there the morning of?
It's go time, right? It's just go time, and I got to do it. One thing, you flip the switch. I tell my kids, I was always this may not seem like this would be the case. I had a lot of social anxiety and still do. But I realized you just go big, just go big. And with competitive eating, it's start big, go bigger, right? So there is never a time on July 3, the night of July 3, the morning of July 4th, that I'm not extremely anxious and nervous. But the issue is when you get on the stage and your people are there, because these people come, they love it, right? The bros are down front. They've been there since 8. In the old days, they had been drinking since 8. Now you can't bring beer in. Not my rule, okay? Not my rule, city in New York. But, and that energy that you put out comes back and it's a feedback loop that just builds and builds and builds. And so by the time I get to the intros, I am so amped up, and my hands shake anyway. I have a genetic tremor. So my hands shake anyway. And when I'm amped up, I can hardly hold the mic, right? People say online, does George have Parkinson's? Thankfully, I don't. I checked it. But my hands go crazy. I'm so amped up. And when I get to deliver something that I like, and then the audience likes it, right? You feel it when you deliver one of these big intros. There is just nothing like that. It has many times made me say, can you imagine what it would be like to be Mick Jagger, or for that matter, Taylor Swift, and have 70,000 people? Like, it would be a drug like none other, because this is a ridiculous hot dog eating contest, and the crowd is much, much smaller. But that energy, it's electric, and it's really like a drug.
Yeah, I kind of can relate with you, because I've always been anxious and talking in social settings growing up, but I found a way to like channel that anxiety energy into positive energy, when doing a weather forecast or something like that. So I can emphasize with you.
It's a very important thing, really, and it took me far too long to learn. If you go into a room and you just feel like, oh my God, I'm going to stand against the back. If you just go and go, hey, suddenly everybody ignores you because you're the guy who doesn't care. You're the guy who's comfortable. And then suddenly it takes away everything. So that is true of public speaking, and it is true of dating. I told my son, if you don't ask, that's the embarrassing. Getting rejected is not an embarrassment. And, and it's very true. It's like, go forward, go big, and the rewards are huge. But it very much so when you're doing a presentation. If you have that energy, everybody quiets down. If you don't have the energy, they get anxious. Now you're anxious.
Last question here. What does George Shea do on the evening of July 4th?
All right. So this is, first of all, I told you, this is a very honest, I'm being very honest. So that
we love it.
I have to tell you, I'm never honest. I'm a liar. I'm a liar all the time. So I'm being honest. I usually sit there and look at social media, and I look at what happens on social media, and I search Joey, I search MLE, I search Badlands Booker, Miki, Nick, I search myself, and I see, what are people saying? Like, one time last year, who's the guy who used to be, or he's connected somehow to wrestling? He has a big podcast. What's his name?
Joe Rogan.
No, I'm spacing it. Anyway, he's got a very, very big podcast. Okay. And then he goes, I thought George's intros, they were okay, but they weren't quite as good. I was like devastated, right? Like, and if someone says like, did George miss the line? Like not that people are going over my lines or something like that, but I just sit there like anybody looking at social media. And if everybody's happy, I'm happy. You know what I'm saying? And if they're not, I'm not. But, last year they had the protester, and the protester jumped on stage, and Joey got him, and then I grabbed him, and it was like, it went crazy on social media. So it just exploded the contest on social media. And that's really what I want to do. I say, how are we playing out there? You know what I'm saying? And then you get the media reports later of traditional media. But I just want to see, typically it trends and stuff like that. So that's generally what I do.
All right. So you're being a businessman after the event and trying to see how you did. So understand.
Self-obsessed and a businessman. Yes.
That's quite all right. You got to keep the thing going. So George, well, thank you so much for the time. Let everybody know where they can check out the hot dog eating contest on the 4th.
Check ESPN. It's going to be on multiple times. You can go to, the best thing to do, go to ifoce.com or majorleagueeating.com, and we will have everything right there. If you want to go to the event, we have the trains to get there. If you want to watch it on TV, we have all of the airings. And what will happen is this: it will air a bunch of times on ESPN, throughout the afternoon and evening.
Awesome. All right, George, thanks so much for joining the Across the Sky podcast. Have a great event on the 4th. I'll be watching, and hopefully we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
Curtain calling all unexpected seekers. The time is here for this year's Capitol Fringe Festival, an annual celebration of theater and expression taking place July 12th to the 23rd in Georgetown. Whether you feel like belly laughing at lighthearted humor, grappling with life's toughest challenges, or toe tapping to the legends of bluegrass music, there's something for every audience member at this live, uncensored event. Come laugh, cry, and make a scene with us. For more information or to book your tickets, visit georgetowndc.com/fringe today.
And we are back. Matt, I have to say, I really enjoyed George. Great guy, very nice, very articulate. If you only watch him during the hot dog eating contest, you wouldn't know it's him. He's like almost two different people, calm, cool, and collected, but I loved it. I love George. I've been following him for years with the hot dog eating contest. I always enjoy the event, and he has a large part to do with it. So definitely a personal honor for me to have him on. But what'd you think, Matt?
I just loved his honesty with us. He said multiple times, like, this. I feel like this is a safe space. I'm gonna be honest with you. And how he said is like, I just get on social media. I want to see what people are saying after the event. I think that's something that you think about. People get on social media and they tweet about people, but it's like, remember that those people can see your tweets if they want to. And there's your proof. You tweet at George Shea, he's going to see it. And the other thing that stood out to me, I think I liked the end of the interview the best because, again, with his honesty, he talks about how he gets nervous before these. I mean, you wouldn't know it watching him. He gets so hyped, it seems like he's the most confident guy in the world, but there's a little bit of anxiety, a little bit of fear. And I can relate to that too. When I'm doing my forecast, there's always that little, those butterflies in your stomach that you get, when I was on TV even when I'm recording things that aren't going out live, I'm not live streaming, there is that sense of nervous because there's an audience and you want to give it your best. And so there is a little bit of nervousness that comes with it. But I liked how he talked about how he channels that into actually improving his performance. Actually, a little bit of nerves is good. It makes you a little bit more loose, not too stiff, and certainly worked for him. And he puts on quite the show.
Amazing show. I also like, too, Miki Sudo and Nick Reary have a child. That child is going to be quite the competitive eater. So if you want to start placing your future sports bets for the year, I don't know, maybe 2043, he might be your guy, the child there. So that was actually pretty funny. But it was a great interview. I hope you guys watch the hot dog eating contest on the 4th of July on ESPN. If you're in New York City area or want to go to New York City for the 4th, I have been to the contest. Definitely get there by about 10 o'clock. It starts to get pretty crowded after that, but it's just a fun time. I mean, it's 4th of July. It's America. Keep it loose. Have fun. You can go to a boardwalk afterwards there. You can go to the Nathan's place and eat a hot dog. I did that too, and the line isn't ridiculously long. You can get a hot dog. You just got to wait maybe 5 minutes or so. But it's a really cool time. So happy 4th of July, everybody. We will be back with you next Monday with a new episode. You can also dial our hotline. We're taking your voicemails about the weather here. You can call in anytime, leave a message. We will answer it on the show, and you can find that. The phone number is 609-272-8255. And I actually lost the last 4. Hold on one second, Matt. Let's see if we can find it here. It is, I know it's 609-272 because that is my phone number. You got to press of AC.
I've got it. It's 7099.
There it is.
609-272-7099. We'll put that in the show notes as well.
Perfect. Thank you, Matt. All right. So we'll be back with you guys next Monday. Thanks for listening to the Across the Sky podcast.
Curtain calling all unexpected seekers. The time is here for this year's Capitol Fringe Festival, an annual celebration of theater and expression taking place July 12th to the 23rd in Georgetown. Whether you feel like belly laughing at lighthearted humor, grappling with life's toughest challenges, or toe tapping to the legends of bluegrass music, there's something for every audience member at this live, uncensored event. Come laugh, cry, and make a scene with us. For more information or to book your tickets, visit georgetowndc.com/fringe today.